What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to another episode of Bloomington Buddies. Without a certain someone present, Eddie decided to oversleep and did not answer his phone. So it's just going to be me today. It's just going to be like a Quincy Bell Sports episode pretty much. But we got plenty to talk about in terms of college football, NFL, some baseball winding down. Hockey preseason started. Probably not going to go too deep into that, but you know what? It's there if we want to dive into it. But what does Eddie usually say? Follow the TikTok and the Spotify and all that stuff. If you look up IUS, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you prefer podcast apps, if you look up IUS TV, it'll be under there because we are affiliated with the IU Student TV Network. So make sure you guys go follow us there if podcast apps are your cup of tea. But let's start it off with talking about what happened this last week in college football. Pretty interesting week. A lot of top 25 matchups. There's only going to be one this upcoming week, which I do kind of want to talk about. But I guess we'll start with the Friday game. This was kind of a shocker. Washington was ranked 15 and was 4-0 after stomping Michigan State, and they looked really good doing it. And they went on the road to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA, and they got their teeth kicked in. They scored to open up the game. Washington was up 7-0, but then UCLA got a safety and then got a touchdown after that, and they just were rolling after that. It was 40. They scored 40-16 at the end of the third quarter. Washington got, two charity touchdowns at the end of that game to make the score look better, but don't let that fool you. This was a blowout, and UCLA looked very impressive doing so. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, UCLA's quarterback, is an absolute stud. He was running it all over the place. He has 11 touchdowns to only 1 interception this year, and he completely outplayed former IU quarterback Michael Penix threw 2 interceptions. Not a good day. He was starting to creep up there on some Heisman lists and then was completely thrashed off the list there. So a bad performance for Washington, but UCLA's 5-0. They were the first team to get to 5-0 because they played earlier than everyone, but maybe UCLA will be a team to watch out for in the Pac-12. Next game, Michigan and Iowa. I thought maybe Iowa could give them a scare, and this is just if anyone watched the game in question, this game was one of the most boring games of the day. Watching Iowa's offense, it's torture. It's mind-numbingly frustrating. It is so hard to watch them do anything on offense. They scored 2 touchdowns and 2 charity touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Michigan, they didn't get the offense wasn't running up and down the field, but it's Iowa's defense on the road. It was going to be a challenge to get to like 20, 30 points, and they got to 27. I think this is a good win for Michigan. They hadn't won there in the last 5 times they had played. So I would put this in the good win category for Michigan. I know Iowa's not world beaters, but the times that they had beaten Michigan, they weren't world beaters then either. So good win for Michigan. They got IU next week, which I really don't want to talk about IU, but I guess we'll have to at some point. The next game, Ole Miss and Kentucky. Now, this was a good game. This is a really good game. 2 kind of under-the-radar teams in the SEC, 2 teams that are trying to compete. I don't think either one of these teams has ever won. Ole Miss and Kentucky have never won the SEC West or East. So they both have dreams and aspirations of one of them getting there, and one of them was going to die in Oxford. And unfortunately for Kentucky, it was them. Bad start to the game. Ole Miss scored 14 right out of the gate. Kentucky did get a touchdown at the end of the first, but missed an extra point, and then they allowed a safety to Ole Miss. So safety, then a field goal off the punt from the safety. So it was 19-6. They did score 2 touchdowns to take the lead, but then Ole Miss kicked a field goal. So they're up by 3, and Kentucky's driving, and Will Levis fumbles the ball with 2 minutes left. So Ole Miss gets it back, and they really can't do anything with it. So Kentucky drives down to get another chance, and Will Levis fumbles the ball again. Now, the second time really wasn't his fault. Guy came screaming off the edge, ripped it out of his hand as he was throwing it. That's on the O-line. But yeah, that's a rough loss for Kentucky. A Kentucky team that I think a lot of people thought could contend for the East with Tennessee and Georgia. And now it's like a 2-team race. They could still maybe make some noise. They're still ranked 13th. They're still a good team. But I would put this a great win for Ole Miss. Especially with a lot of teams in the SEC West floundering, doing pretty badly, i.e. Texas A&M. Wow, that was bad. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, Ole Miss, good win. They're going to be ranked in the top 10. They already are ranked in the top 10. This, oh my God, I'm actually getting sick of talking about Oklahoma because it's every week, not even every week, it's every year that they have an embarrassing loss to a team they should beat. Honestly, within the past, even 10 years, this may have been the worst I've ever seen out of Oklahoma. Against TCU, now TCU's not a pushover, but I mean, they're not world beaters. Okay, they beat SMU by 8. They're not running up and down on teams, but they ran up and down on you. Oh my goodness, it was they scored 20 points within the first 8 minutes of the first quarter, and at the end of the first quarter, it was 27-10. 27-10, and things did not even get better in the second quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, make it 41-17 at half. And then things got worse in the third quarter. They scored a touchdown. Actually, they scored 2 touchdowns again. It was 55-17 at the end of the third quarter. And if they wanted to, they could have hung 70 or 80 on you. You were lucky they showed mercy. Oh my goodness, this has to be. Now Dylan Gabriel did get knocked out of the game. Oklahoma's quarterback did get knocked out of the game. Only went 7 for 16 with 126 yards. But Dylan Gabriel was not out there giving up 55 points on defense, and it wasn't even like they were marching the field on you. It would be Max Duggan, TCU's quarterback, who had the game of his life. He would throw the ball downfield, and there wouldn't even be an Oklahoma DB within 30 yards of TCU's wide receiver. It was wild just seeing this game go up and down. 55-24 your final, and this game could have been 80-24. I do not want to hear anything about Oklahoma ever being good ever again. I mean, you brought in a defensive guru of a coach for a reason. This is embarrassing. I mean, fire alarms have to be sounding off. I know it's Brett Venables' first year, but this, I'm telling you, man, that is an inexcusable loss. Next game, Purdue and Minnesota. This game was just head scratching. Now, part of the reason I do want to mention this. Minnesota's running back, Mohamed Ibrahim, he was a stud. He's a bowling ball. No one could tackle him, but he was ruled out for this game, and that was something that wasn't really talked about during the week. All week I assumed he'd play. And really, Minnesota's offense just came to a screeching halt with him out of the game. I mean, the run game was not even near as effective. I mean, Williams, their backup running back, had 11 carries for 35 yards. He did get in the end zone. But, I mean, it was hard to watch. Normally, one person going out should not kill your offense. But, I mean, in this case, he sets the tone with the run game because he can run it for 5-6 yards every carry, and then teams start to commit to the run. Then you open up the pass game. But, really, they couldn't do any of that against Purdue. And Purdue wasn't even running the ball up and down. It was tied 10-10 going into the fourth. Purdue did kick a field goal. And then so Minnesota's driving, they throw a pick, and then Purdue on the ensuing drive hands the ball to their walk-on running back, who just takes it up the sidelines for 40 yards, gets out of bounds at the 2, and they punched it in, and that does it at 20-10. Now, I wouldn't completely write off Minnesota. It's one conference loss. Obviously, I don't think they'll make the playoff anymore because they would have had to go undefeated and beat Ohio State or Michigan, but I still think they're the favorite to win the Big Ten West. I mean, everyone in that division is 1-1. Well, besides Wisconsin, who we'll also talk about later. I mean, it's anyone's race, but honestly, I still think Minnesota is the strongest team in that division. Especially if Ibrahim comes back, they should be all right. But that is definitely a disappointing loss. Kansas State took care of Texas A&M 37-28. I mean, two teams coming off an upset. One of them had to win, one of them had to lose. Kansas State was 17 in the fourth is what did it. I mean, Adrian Martinez is looking pretty good. Wisconsin. Yeah. 34-10 to Illinois. An Illinois team that IU beat. I mean, come on. This wasn't even a game. It was a game. It was a game at half. It was 14-10 Illinois at half. And you're like, Wisconsin's got to get it together. Well, you know who got it together in the second half was Illinois. 20 unanswered in the second half. They did not even score in the second half at home. An embarrassing 24-point loss to Illinois. I mean, Illinois I don't think is that bad. But, I mean, they're not great. I mean, they're not an amazing team. So the fact that they lost this game pretty badly is head-scratching. But quite possibly even more head-scratching is that head coach Paul Chryst is gone. He is going to have to find employment somewhere else. And this is shocking to me because he's had successful seasons at Wisconsin. I mean, this is really the first time I can even think of where Wisconsin has like started with a losing record, or like will they make a bowl? I don't know. But like, I don't think I've ever seen Wisconsin play this badly, but one bad season is enough to just oust Paul Chryst. I'm a little surprised about that. Interested to see who their next coach will be. But that's a head-scratching decision. I mean, that's a bad loss, but like, it wasn't even the worst loss of the weekend. That belongs to Oklahoma. So I don't know. I don't know about that. Utah defeated Oregon State 42-16. Now, the reason I think this is significant is because Oregon State took USC to the wire in a game I really thought they would take them to the wire. And then they come on the road at Utah and just completely get blown out. So, I mean, I don't know if that means Utah is significantly better than USC. I mean, these teams will play each other in the week after this upcoming week. USC is at Utah. So that'll be an interesting game. But Utah, I think, is really rebounding well after that Florida loss. They've looked really, really good since then. Shout out to my boys over at Ball State. I have a bunch of friends that go there. They defeated their biggest rival, Northern Illinois, in double overtime, 44-38. They play for, I forget what trophy they play for. I think they play for like the Bronze Stalk or something. It's something weird like that. But yeah, Ball State won it in double overtime. Shout out Ball State, chirp chirp. Okay, this game, I picked this upset. I picked Arkansas over Alabama. Now, early in the game, it did not look good. Alabama 14-0 in the first quarter. But then, near the end of I think it was either near the end of the first quarter or early second quarter, Bryce Young is taken out of the game. He got hurt. I forget how he got hurt. I don't think it's really I don't think it's a serious injury. He was moving around on the sidelines. I think he'll be fine and be back for A&M this upcoming week. But backup quarterback Jalen Milroe comes in. No, I had never heard of this guy. First time I got to watch him. He looks like he should be playing middle linebacker. This guy is huge. I mean, he is enormous. He's my God. I mean, he literally looks like he's like bigger than most of the like linemen on Alabama's defense. It was so wild to watch. But the offense picks up right where it left off. They score a touchdown. They scored 2 touchdowns to open up the second quarter. And in the blink of an eye, it's 28-0 Alabama. Now, I'm like, oh, game's over. Now, we had this game on in the background of some other games. But Arkansas scores a touchdown with 21 seconds left in the half. Okay, good job. They scored. Offense starts to kind of slow down a little bit for Alabama. Arkansas scores another touchdown to make it 28-14. And this is where Sam Pittman gets aggressive. He goes for the onside, the Pat McAfee play, where the kicker runs up, kicks it to the 10-yard line, and just runs out and grabs it. And they executed it perfectly. It took a big high bounce, and Arkansas even had players going in to block around him so he could catch the ball. Works out perfectly. Arkansas gets it. They got a field goal out of that drive. Would have liked to see a touchdown, but they got a field goal out of that drive. Ensuing Alabama drive, they go 3 and out, and they're about to punt from about the 20-yard line, and the snap, I don't even know if it hit one of the up men or if it was just a terrible snap, but the snap goes back, and it's like 30 feet from the punter. He has to race back inside the 5-yard line, falls on it, and Arkansas is set up 1st and goal, and they punch it in. And so now, what was a 28-point game is now a 5-point game. And I'm thinking, there is no way Alabama's winning this game because Arkansas has just a tidal wave of momentum. And I'm like, there's no way they win this. They're probably going to go 3 and out again. Arkansas is going to come down and score. That place was as loud as it had been. And sure enough, Alabama goes out of their next drive, and they're backed up on a 3rd and 15. Milroe goes back to pass. Arkansas goes back into coverage. He steps up, runs, and sidesteps a man at the 50-yard line, and is just gone down the sidelines. He almost stretched it all the way. It was a 70-yard run. They punched in the end zone. Arkansas goes 3 and out. Next drive, Jahmyr Gibbs, handoff, 70 yards. Arkansas got a field goal. Next drive, Jahmyr Gibbs, handoff, 70-yard run. They allowed 3 70-yard runs in 10 minutes, in 8 minutes. In 8 minutes, they allowed 3 70-yard runs that cost them 21 points. So a disappointing end to that game for Arkansas. But Alabama, I mean, if they're doing stuff like that with their backups in, I guess a really good team on the road. I mean, I was really impressed that they were able to stave off that momentum Arkansas had. Ohio State 49-10 over Rutgers. I mean, let's not even dive into this. This was so predictable. Rutgers did make it 7-0, but I mean, it was pretty much all Ohio State after that. Oklahoma State and Baylor. Now, this was a pretty good game. This was very similar to the Arkansas-Alabama game, happening at the same time. It was all Oklahoma State at the start of this game. It was 23-3. Spencer Sanders was doing great things. They got a safety, too. But then Baylor starts coming back. They hit a bomb touchdown over the top to make it 23-10. Then they force a punt, and they score again. And so now it's a one-score game. But then, I mean, after that, I mean, they just started trading scores. And when you're down early, you can't really trade scores and win the game. Baylor, they would get really close, but then they wouldn't get a stop when they needed it. And eventually, Oklahoma State wins by 11. I figured Baylor would be the best team of the Big 12, but so far it's looking like Oklahoma State. Penn State 17-7 over Northwestern. I mean, you'd like to see better from Penn State against a terrible Northwestern team. It was 14-0 at half, but then they kind of just went to sleep in the second half. I mean, they didn't score. They scored 3 points in the second half. Scored a field goal at the start of the fourth quarter. I wouldn't be too concerned if I was Penn State, but I mean, you'd like to see the offense do a little bit more. Wake Forest defeated Florida State 31-21. I figured this game would go the way it did. I mean, Wake Forest offense showed up. Florida State, I mean, I didn't really think Florida State was that good. I didn't really think they deserve. I mean, they. You could say they deserve to be ranked, but I don't think they were the 23rd best team in the country. Didn't think so. Okay. If I want to know what the odds are that Kansas would be ranked this year. I have no idea what the odds were on that, but this was wild. So they played Iowa State, and they scored 14 in the second quarter, scored 2 touchdowns, and Iowa State's kicker had missed 2 30-yard field goals earlier in the game. He missed 2 30-yarders. So after Kansas is up 14-0, when Iowa State scores, they go for 2 because their kicker he's terrible. He's got no confidence. Well, they get it. They make it 14-8. And then in the third quarter, this guy does make a field goal to make it 11-14, but this was just punt. So many punts in this game. But eventually, Iowa State drives down in the waning seconds. They're kicking a field goal to tie the game, and this guy hooks it so far to the left. I mean, it almost hit the pylon. It was terrible. It was not even close. Horrible kick. Missed 3 30-yard field goals. Cost them 9 points. And the game. I mean, Kansas didn't even look that impressive in this game, but Iowa State can do it. But you got to feel happy for Kansas. 5-0. I mean, that team hasn't been good since 2007 when they were ranked like second in the country out of nowhere and then went back to being terrible the next year. They're 5-0, and not only that, they're going to be ranked, and College Game Day is coming to Lawrence. The only ranked matchup this upcoming week is Kansas and TCU. TCU also is ranked out now that they throttled Oklahoma. I mean, I bet you that crowd's going to be nuts because the game day crowds are always the best at the places that they never go. Like when they went to App State, it was nuts. And when they went to, whenever they go to a small, they went to James Madison one year, and it was just filled for blocks and blocks and blocks. So I'd imagine Kansas will show up and show out. Maryland over Michigan State, 27-13. Michigan State is swirling the drain. I mean, they are just not good. Mel Tucker, I mean, what did they gave him like a 10-year, $100 million extension after one good year. I don't know about that. And then their upcoming games are Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. It could be a bad year for MSU. Might miss a bowl. I hate to say it, might miss a bowl. North Carolina over Virginia Tech, 41-10. Virginia Tech also bad year. Probably not going to make a bowl. What else we got here? Texas A&M. You are a defense-first team. Defense-first team. And you allowed 42 points to the air raid? That's the most predictable offense. They throw the ball every play, just drop everyone into coverage. I know it's not that simple. But But come on, man, 42. Mississippi State was a 3-point favorite in this game. And I was kind of like, I don't know about that. A&M's, I think, for sure the better team. I know they had the rough game against App State, but they just got 2 good wins. I think they should be feeling themselves. Nope, they came out and rolled all over Texas A&M. This game was the first half wasn't that bad. It was 14-0, but the second half, they blew it up. And A&M, again, scored some pity points. A lot of these blowouts that were upsets, the favored team was scoring pity points at the end of the game. Jimbo Fisher needs to change the offense around. I mean, run something else, because whatever they have going is not working. You want to know the most points A&M has scored in a game this year? The most points they've scored in a game this year is 31 against an FCS team, Sam Houston State. 14 against App State, 17 against Miami, and 23 against Arkansas. And remember when we said Miami and Arkansas were going to be tough games? Well, it turns out Miami's circling the drain. Got blown out by MTSU the other week. And Arkansas, they held Alabama close. Couldn't quite finish it off. But you play the team. Next week, you play the team that you trash talked all offseason about having the best recruiting class in the nation. Yeah, they're sure out there making plays right now. You got to go at Alabama. This is going to be bad. Alabama's favored by 24. They're favored by 24, and that even seems low to me. That's going to be a massacre of a game. Nick Saban is not going to let you up easy in that game. You better be ready for war, and I don't know if you are. But yeah, your playoff chances and SEC championship hopes are gone. Syracuse 59-0 over Wagner. I know it's Wagner, and everyone would be, but Syracuse 5-0, ranked now. They're ranked. I'm gonna dive into the AP poll after this. LSU 21-17 over Auburn, and close game. Auburn scored the first 17 points of this game. I thought LSU could be in dire need of an upset, but they did string it together with 3 touchdowns. 2 at the end of the second quarter, and then 1 at the start of the third. Defense really shut it down. Auburn is trying to get their coach fired. I would have expected. I want to see a better performance from LSU. LSU's ranked now. Not sure if they're worthy. I would not have ranked them. Okay. Now, last week we talked about Georgia struggling against Kent State, and I was like, you know what? It's one bad game. You sleep. Sometimes you sleepwalk through a good group of 5 team. Sometimes you sleepwalk through a game. Well, now they're on the road at Missouri, who's probably the worst team in the SEC besides Vandy. You don't know why they're so bad? Well, they lost to Auburn. That's all you really need to know. But Missouri comes out of this game and they schemed Georgia up and down the field. Their D-line was getting to Stetson Bennett. Georgia could not do anything on offense. Missouri was playing really, really well. And at the end of the first half, it was 16-6. Now here's the thing: if you want to complete an upset, you got to get touchdowns, not field goals. So Missouri kicked 3 field goals, did score 1 touchdown, but their kicker was playing really well. And I'll dive into their kicker in a minute, second half. But in both of the times Georgia threatened on offense, they had to settle for field goals. So it's a 10-point lead for Missouri. In the third quarter, Georgia again has to hold for a short field goal. Couldn't punch it in the end zone. Missouri's kicker walks out, nails a 52-yarder. Georgia again drives inside the 10 or 20, has to settle for a short field goal. Next drive, Missouri comes out, kicks another 56-yarder. Now, I get it. You want to score touchdowns, not field goals, but most of these field goals, a 49-yarder, 22-yarder, 41-yarder, 56-yarder, and a 52-yarder. Missouri's field goal kicker was out there strutting his stuff, and so was Georgia's kicker for the most part. I saw a stat. This was the first game where both kickers in the SEC started 9 for 9 in a game. Iowa State's kicker could never. But, again, it was a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter after that 56-yarder. But again, Missouri was starting to stall out. It's like they're going to need a touchdown. And at the end of the day, they just couldn't get it. Georgia scored a touchdown with 9 minutes left to make it a 3-point game, and then scored a touchdown with 4 minutes left to make it a 4-point lead of their own. And they escape Columbus, or I think Missouri. I think it's in Columbia, Missouri. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they escaped that stadium night environment with a win. Now, this is where I might start to sound off some alarms because this is 2 weeks in a row. You've played a team that you should have blown out. How much was Georgia favored? 31. And they won by 4 and really could have lost that game. I would be concerned if I was a Georgia fan. I'd be really concerned. Luckily for them, they have an easy schedule again coming up. They got Auburn, Vandy, and Florida as their next 3 games. And then they got 3 real tough games: Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. So they're going to have to get their act together, but I think they should be fine. But if another game like this pops up, I'd really be concerned. All right, next, the game of the week. Everyone thought it would be the game of the week. Clemson at NC State. It was a pretty standard game. NC State's offense just couldn't get rolling. Wake Forest was able to run it up and down on Clemson, but NC State just doesn't have that caliber of an offense. And eventually, Clemson just wore them down defensively. 30-20, the final score. It was a pretty good game, but ultimately, Clemson has the better talent, and they were at home, so that's why they got a win. I really thought Wake Forest, if any team was going to be Clemson, it would be Wake Forest, and they were the one that almost did it. Texas over West Virginia. Good job. You're not the worst team in the Big 12. Texas is just a joke. Speaking of joke, IU football. My goodness, this was a terrible loss. Terrible, terrible, terrible loss to Nebraska. They were favored by 5.5. Nebraska was. And I'm like, how? I don't understand. They lost to Georgia Southern and Northwestern. And IU, they're not a great team, but they haven't looked bad. I'm like, how are they a 5-point favorite? Well, they come out, they score within, IU went 3 and out, and then they scored 2 plays later. It's already 7-0. IU did recover a fumble in the end zone to make it 7-7. But then 2 touchdowns from Nebraska, 1 on a punt block that got returned all the way. That was disappointing. And then a 1-yard touchdown run. But IU ended the half. 3 minutes left, they score. And then they ended up converting with 15 seconds left in the half to tie the game. And in the second half, they could not move the ball to save their life. They could not even get a first down. It was that bad. Could barely even cross the line of scrimmage. Nebraska wasn't much better until the fourth quarter. 71-yard pass touchdown from Casey Thompson to Trey Palmer. And then they went on another drive to make it 14. And that was all she wrote. Nebraska, it wasn't an upset. They were favored, but, embarrassing loss for IU. The fact that they got to play Michigan this upcoming week. The spread just came out. Michigan's favored by 22. Yeah, that was just bad. Maybe they're looking ahead to Michigan, but are you a good enough team to be looking ahead to games? I don't think so. We'll see. Hopefully they come out against Michigan with some sort of game plan, because I do not want to go to that game and watch a 40-point blowout. This may have been the upset of the week. In terms of this team beating this team. Because the TCU upset was an embarrassing upset for Oklahoma. But I don't think people would have been too shocked if TCU would have won. TCU's not that bad of a team. There were upsets, but it was at least that team could have won. Mississippi State over Texas A&M. Okay, they were favored by 3. They could have won that game, and they did win that game. This game, this upset, nobody had coming. I guarantee you that. Georgia Tech beating Pitt 26-21. Georgia Tech. Now, to give you context, Pitt was favored by 21.5. 3 scores. 3 scores they were favored by. And Pitt Georgia Tech is a joke. Blown out by Clemson, beat Western Carolina, blown out by Ole Miss, blown out by UCF. And they finally fired Jeff Collins. Terrible coach. He inherited a triple option team. A team that ran the triple option, Georgia Tech. And, okay, first year, he's got all triple option players. He's got to get his own recruits in. Georgia Tech won 3 games. Second year, they won 3 games. Third year, they won 3 games. So it's no improvement whatsoever. I thought they should have fired him after the third year because, he just doesn't look like he knew what he was doing. After the UCF loss, they said, get your ass out of town. New interim coach comes in. I don't know who their interim coach is. Interim coach comes in, and they upset a top 25 team on the road. Georgia Tech beat... If you have a sentence that it's Georgia Tech beat anyone, that's a big deal. Let alone a ranked team. Good on you, Georgia Tech. Cherish this win. Hall, their running back, Hassan Hall, great game from him. 20 carries, 157 yards. I mean, they ran the ball up and down Pitt's throat pretty much. I mean, they were up 26-14 in the fourth quarter, and Pitt scored a pity touchdown. All these teams that got blown out scoring pity touchdowns. It was 26-14 with a minute to go. Good on you, Georgia Tech. Good job. That was probably the most shocking upset of the day, honestly. And I mean, not in the way the game panned out, but I did not think Georgia Tech would come anywhere close to winning that game. USC blew out Arizona State. They're looking good. They're looking really good. And Oregon blew out Stanford. The Pac-12 starting to rebound. After week one, Utah and Oregon losing, I thought was just a death blow to the Pac-12. I'm like, they're not going to do anything this year. But I mean, Oregon looks good. USC looks good. UCLA looks good. Pretty good. Also, this game was on Sunday. Florida beat the hell out of Eastern Washington. That game was moved because of the hurricane in Florida. If any of you live in Florida, make sure you guys stay safe. I don't want to see any of y'all getting hurt. But let's look at the AP poll, because the AP poll has been flipped on its head after this last week. There are a lot of teams in here where it's like, how is that team ranked? Okay, so there's a new number one team. So Alabama struggled with Texas, and then they put Georgia number one. Now Georgia struggles with Kent State and Missouri. Alabama's looking better, and they put Alabama back at one. Honestly, I think you can interchange these two. If I had to pick now, I think I'd pick Alabama. That might just be recency bias talking, but we'll have to see. Ohio State is at 3. They've looked a lot better after that Notre Dame struggle, which I know was 21-10, not that much of a struggle, but we realized that Notre Dame team is terrible. Wow, that team is bad. But, I mean, blew out Arkansas State, blew out Toledo, blew out Wisconsin, blew out Rutgers. I mean, those aren't good teams, but we'll see. They also don't play a good team next week, Michigan State. We'll see. At Penn State could be a tough game. I don't know, but Ohio State, third best team. Michigan. Here's the thing about Michigan. Michigan is really the only team that I would think that of the teams in the top 5 or 10, Michigan is really the only one that hasn't struggled with a game yet. I mean, all these other teams have struggled with a game. I know Michigan's probably had the least strength of schedule with those teams, but like, ask yourselves, like, is Maryland that much better than Missouri? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they looked good. I mean, they got IU next week, or this upcoming week. I'm pissed that that's a noon game. That should be a night game. I don't like that that's a noon game, because there's no good games that week. Like, literally, on my weekly picks on my channel, I have 2 featured games. That's a featured game, because there were no other good games. The 2 featured games are Michigan, IU, and Kansas, TCU. But we'll see. Clemson 5. I was kind of writing off Clemson, but you know, they look better. They beat the team that I thought would take them down, Wake Forest, and then they had a good win against NC State. USC 6. They're looking strong. Oklahoma State 7. Also looking strong. Probably could win the Big 12. Tennessee 8. They were on a bye this past week, but they're looking great. Ole Miss up in the top 10 after that win over Kentucky. Penn State is at 10 after blowing out Auburn, and who else did they beat? That's really the big win, the Auburn win, and they beat Purdue. So those are all the top 10 is all undefeated. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, USC, Oklahoma State, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Penn State. Now you got a horde of one-loss teams that are chasing everyone. Utah, Oregon, Kentucky, NC State, Wake, and BYU. They are kind of the next tier of teams that really are going to have to probably win out if they want any conference championship hopes or playoff hopes. But yeah, those teams have been looking good. Utah, Oregon, Kentucky, and NC State kind of fell down here. Wake got a big jump because everyone's like, oh, Wake not that good. Lost to Clemson, but then they went out and beat Florida State on the road, so Wake is good. And then you got 3 teams here that are I'm going to put Syracuse in this guy. You got 4 teams that are undefeated that are really flying under the radar. TCU, UCLA, Kentucky, and Syracuse. Kansas at 19. That is interesting. I mean, here's the thing, though. I'm still not a believer in Kansas. I mean, Iowa State is not that great. Like, they haven't really beaten a good team yet. The Houston win actually was really impressive, I felt like. They whopped Houston on the road, but that Houston team just lost to Tulane. So, I don't know. They haven't really proven themselves yet. If they beat TCU, I'll be a believer in Kansas. But TCU is 6.5-point favorites to open up that game. So we'll have to see. UCLA, I feel like really impressive. They host Utah this week. We'll see if maybe they can get up there. But if any of those teams keep winning, they could be in the top 10. Could be in the top 10. Mississippi State, Cincinnati, LSU, and Washington round out the poll. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. What happens there? That's the AP poll. I guess we'll move into NFL now. I'm not really as big I'm starting to not be a huge fan of the NFL because I feel like I care about the Bears, and then it's like I'll watch the Bears, watch them lose to the Giants, but like I'll watch the Bears game at like noon, and then the late games will be on, and it's like I don't give two hoots or a country holler who wins this game. But you know what? I mean, some of them are fun to watch. My fantasy teams kicked ass. Both leagues I was in, I scored like 150. A good week of fantasy for me. We already talked about Bengals and Dolphins on Friday. Saints and Vikings in London. Didn't really watch any of this game, but I hear there was a double doink in this game. Will Lutz, 61 yards, hits it off both. Now, I don't really want to hear people making fun of Will Lutz. That's a 61-yarder. That's hard to make. That's not Cody Parkey missing a 43-yarder. Every time I mention that, I just like twitch up and like get Vietnam flashbacks. All right, next we got Atlanta and Cleveland. I picked Atlanta to win, and they did end up winning. Good game from actually not a good game from Marcus Mariota, 7 of 19 for 103 yards and a pick. Tyler Algier, rookie running back out of BYU, good game, 10 carries, 84 yards. The defense really showed up in that game for him. Cowboys and Commanders. Cooper Rush is 4-0 as a starting quarterback, 3-0 this year, 1-0 last year. I mean, it sure would be a shame if Dallas had a starting quarterback that got hurt week 1 and then the backup took him all the way for a bunch of wins. Ask Dak Prescott if he knows anything about that. But good win for the Cowboys. Seahawks and the Lions, 48-45. I watched some of this game, and I'm like, holy cow, they are scoring up and down the field. The box score, I have to scroll down the scoring summary. I mean, this game was wild. TJ Hockenson put up 40 fantasy points, 8 catches, 179 yards, 2 tutties. But Seattle running them up and down the field, and I think that's really going to be the downfall for Detroit. I mean, the least amount of points that they've given up this season is 27 to Washington. So they got to get, I mean, their offense is great. Their offense scored 35, 36, 24, 45. The offense is clicking for the Lions, but they need some defensive help and badly. Because I love Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith's a great underrated quarterback. A Geno Smith-led offense should not be putting a 48 on you. I'm sorry. Titans put the Colts back to reality. I kind of expected this after they beat the Chiefs. Tennessee pretty much ran away with this game. It was 24-3. They ran all over them. They kind of came back at the end. Indianapolis did a little bit, but a little too late. Titans get the win. Giants over the Bears, 20-12. Once again, you cannot be winning games if you kick field goals instead of touchdowns. The Bears scored 4 times in this game. And the Giants scored 4 times in this game, but the Bears, all field goals from the Money Badger, backup kicker. I think they signed him because Santos was away from the team, but Money Badger goes 4 for 4. But eventually, the defense couldn't hold all game. At one point, Daniel Jones got knocked out of the game because he was hurt. Then they put in backup Tyrod Taylor, and Tyrod Taylor goes to run and takes a lick of a hit. He got popped. And so he gets knocked out of the game. So now you got both their quarterbacks sort of like, oh, they got to bring their third string in. Apparently they don't have one. Apparently the Giants don't have a third string quarterback. So you know who went out and played quarterback for the Giants? Saquon Barkley. They had him lined up in the Wildcat with Matt Breida, and it worked. The Bears couldn't do a damn thing about it. Saquon Barkley would line up with Matt Breida, and I'm like, oh, Barkley's going to keep it on the read option. And he did. And they would get like 7 yards every carry. It was unfair. Eventually, Daniel Jones did come back, but he couldn't even really do much. I mean, he basically had to hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. But eventually what happens is after that, the Bears are going for, it's like third and, I can't remember. It was like third and 2 from like the 40-yard line. They're down 8. And literally I said, they're going to run it up the middle and the Giants are going to stop it because they know they're running it up the middle. What do? They pound it at the nose tackle. They don't get any yards. So now the Bears I thought they should have gone for it. I thought really they should have gone for it there. It's like third and 2 from the 40 with like 3 minutes left. I'm like, if you punt, you're probably not going to get the ball back. Sure enough, they punt. They do get the ball back. Actually, they did get a 3 and out. They kind of got the ball back. So they punt it. Right, rookie Velus Jones is sitting there back to return. Everyone, Bears fans, where's Velus Jones? Where's Velus Jones? Where's Velus Jones? I mean, he's a highly touted receiver. Why have we not seen Velus Jones? So Velus Jones back to serve the punt, hits him right in the hands. He muffs it. The Giants pick it up, and it's like, that's game over, right? Giants go to kick a field goal with 20 seconds left to ice it, and they missed it. So the Bears do have one chance, but, I mean, they lateraled the ball for like a minute. That play was funny to watch. I don't know if any of you saw that. Justin Fields throwing the ball 30 yards behind. Best passes he threw all day. The play, I thought they maybe could have scored there, but no, they didn't. So the Giants win. I mean, it's gotten bad for the Bears. What me as just Joe Blow on his couch is, they're going to run up the middle. They're going to run a stretch to the right. They're going to run a stretch to the left. Like, come on, develop some offense. It is so sick of watching. It's just embarrassing to watch them on a weekly basis. Eagles beat the Jaguars 29-21. Jaguars were looking good after the last game, blew out the Chargers, and then they come out 14-0 in the first quarter. I thought maybe they could have an upset brewing again, but the Eagles scored 29 unanswered after that. They completely put their foot on the gas and did not let it up for the rest of the game. So they get, in my opinion, a good win. Now the only undefeated team left, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Jets took down the Steelers 24-20, and literally, Mike Tomlin, let's have a chat. Learn to get your team ready to play during the week. I don't think I've ever seen a Mike Tomlin-led team come out against a not very good team like the Jets or the Browns. Well, the Browns used to be bad. They still are pretty bad, but like when the Browns went 0-16, or like they played the Raiders one year when they had like 2 wins. I have never seen a Mike Tomlin-led team come out against a sorry team and run them out of the game. They always have to struggle. They have to struggle every game. And sometimes they win in a close game, and sometimes they lose. And right now you got the loss. Sorry, guys. So Mitch Trubisky was ultimately taken out for Kenny Pickett, which, in my opinion, was the right move. I mean, why were you having Kenny Pickett sit behind Mitchell Trubisky? Now, here's the thing. I think as a Bears fan, Mitch Trubisky is overhated. I was actually really hard on Mitch in his time in Chicago. I was really hard on Mitch. But looking back, I don't think I should have been that hard on him because, I mean, Justin Fields looks just as bad. I have faith that Justin Fields can turn it around. That's kind of me just drowning myself in my own hopes. Because, I mean, is he? Maybe not. But I think Mitch was overhated. But still, I mean, he's not an amazing quarterback. I don't really, like, if you have the rookie there that's ready to go, why are you having him sit behind a guy like Kenny Pickett should not have been sitting behind a Mitchell Trubisky level talent. But he went 10 of 13 for 120 yards, but those 3 incompletions were all interceptions. He threw 3 picks in this game. Ultimately, I mean, it was 2017 Pittsburgh. Breece Hall, 2-yard touchdown, seals the win for the Jets. They get the upset. Bills and Ravens. Now, I didn't really watch much of this game, but my buddy who's a Bills fan was watching the game in the room. And it was all Ravens early in this game. It was like wet outside. The Bills, I mean, Josh Allen was struggling. I mean, it was 20-3. Justin Tucker nailed 2-yard field goals, 2 touchdowns from Dobbin Hood, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, they really couldn't do anything, but ultimately the Bills' defense locked it down in the second half. Didn't allow a single point. Isaiah McKenzie caught a touchdown right before the second half ended. Big Ball Bass nailed 2 field. That's what my friend calls him. Shout out Alex Bond. Tyler Bass nailing 2 field goals. one to win the game as time expired like a chip shot 20-yarder. Marcus Peters was seen yelling his ass off on Jim Harbaugh. Marcus Peters, big emotion guy, but he was big screaming. Tough loss for the Ravens. Chargers rebound game. They pretty much completely blew out the Texans. The Texans did mount. Actually, the Texans did almost take this game back. It was 27-7 at half. But I mean, Austin Eckler was all over the place, but I mean, Rex Burkhead had a touchdown, Cooks had a touchdown. I mean, it became a 3-point game. It almost blew the game for the Chargers. Would have been par for the course, honestly, with how they blow leads. But I mean, it is the Houston Texans, so ultimately the Chargers scored a touchdown to seal it. But you know what? Good win for the Chargers. They needed a bounce back game. Cardinals at Panthers. Panthers. They had a pick 6 early in this game. Former Bear Eddie Pinheiro was making field goals. It was 10-10 at one point at the end of the third quarter, but in the fourth quarter, Arizona taking control. Matt Prater with the field goal. Kyler Murray touchdown. Marquise Brown touchdown. And that was it. 26-10. They did score a touchdown to make it 26-16, but Cardinals over the not-so-good Panthers. Packers and Patriots. I didn't watch any of this game, but I heard it was a good game. I did see some highlights. Patriots were out there rolling the Packers at one point. They were standing right with them. They had a pick 6. Ultimately, it was tied at the end of the fourth quarter, but Green Bay gets the game-winning kick in overtime to stay pace with the Vikings. I think the Vikings are looking significantly better than the Packers, so the Packers are going to need to keep pace with the Vikings at all possible cases. The Raiders take down the Broncos 32-23. I predicted this. The Raiders needed a win and badly, and they got one over what I will say for the rest of the year, a not good Broncos team. It was pretty much all Raiders in this game. Actually, that's not true. Denver had it was a tie game. Not Oakland. Las Vegas scored a field goal to take the lead. Another field goal. Basically, they just killed them to death with field goals near the end of that game. Kicked a lot of field goals. And how many field goals did they make? 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought they had more than that. But, Derek Carr played well. Josh Jacobs had a hell of a game. 28 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Devontae Adams had 101 yards receiving. So a good win for them. Chiefs and Buccaneers. I did watch this game. And the people are going to hate on Tom Brady for this game. Tom Brady tried his damnedest to pull the Bucs to a win in this game. Final line for Tom Brady, 39 of 52, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Bucs were rolling it on offense. The problem is they couldn't get a stop to save their damn lives. 41 points given up by the Bucs. You thought that Brady stat line was good. Actually, Mahomes pretty much had the same stat line, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire rushed for 92 yards and a touchdown. Kelsey was off a perk. The Chiefs put it up 41 on what's supposed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. That is significant in my opinion. I think the Chiefs are going to pick up right where they left off because I'm not sure if I'm not going to say they're better without Tyreek Hill. But here's what I'm saying. Pretty much everyone got involved on the action. If you name a player on the Chiefs offense, they were making plays to help win that game. Juju was playing really well. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was playing really well. Mecole Hardman played really well. Let's look at the box score. In terms of receiving, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different Chiefs caught a pass. Travis Kelce, 9 catches, 92 yards. Valdez-Scantling had 3 catches. Juju, 5. Sky Moore with 2. Fortson, Hartman, Edwards-Helaire, McKinnon, all chipped in. The running game was great. 3 different players had over 30 yards rushing. Isaac Pacheco, I think that's his name. Isaiah Pacheco, however you say his name, has 63 yards. Edwards-Helaire had 92. Mahomes had 34. They are spreading the ball around and picking up right where they left off on offense. So the Chiefs have looked really good. What's the Monday night game? Rams and 49ers. San Francisco favored by 2. I'm picking San Francisco this game. I think they're going to get a win. Projected score 22-20. We'll see how that works out. I think San Francisco is going to rebound. They kind of have the Rams number. The Rams have had trouble there. Let's see what happened in baseball. Now, I'll give you a funny story. So the guy that lives across the hall, the guy that lives in the dorm across the hall from me, he's a diehard Braves fan. He's from Atlanta. So I saw him wearing he was wearing a suit. And now you see people at IU wear suits for different things. Some frats make you wear them. Some things do this, and that. So I'm like, why are you wearing a suit? He's like, it's for the New York Mets funeral. He's like, we're gonna sweep him and take this division. So I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, I wore the suit yesterday, and they won. He's like, so I gotta wear the suit today. This was game 2. This was during game 2 of the series. The Braves. So in case you don't know, the Braves and Mets were tied for the Mets. The Braves were up by 1 game in the division. And they were going to play a 3-game set to basically decide who wins the division. And so this was during game 2. The Braves won game 1 5-2. Max Fried pitched a great game. A lot of homers in this game. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Dansby Swanson all homered. Eddie Rosario sac fly. Orlando Arcia is on the Braves? Really? I did not know that. The pitching was great for the Braves. They win the first game 5-2. They got all over Jacob DeGrom. Jacob DeGrom, not a good game. So during game 2, he's like, yeah, I'm wearing the suit because for the New York Mets funeral. And so I'm like, okay. And then, of course, won game 2. They won 4-2. Once again, great pitching. Kyle Wright, who has won 21 games. Now, I know wins don't really matter for a pitcher, but you don't see many 20-game winners now and then. So Kyle Wright, great young pitcher. Again, Max Scherzer getting the loss there. That's their tandem right there. Scherzer and DeGrom, and they both got handed L's in this one. So then, right, I'm about to go leave. I'm about to go leave for a buddy. So I knock on his door. He comes out. He's wearing the suit, and I'm like, all right, hey, what's the score? He's like, oh, well, the Mets. He's like, Braves are down 3-1. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I left. And what do you know? Braves came back and won. Matt Olson, again, homering and walking with the bases loaded. He's been a force this year. Matt Olson, so obviously the Braves wanted to re-sign Freddie Freeman in the offseason. Eventually they couldn't do that. Now, there's a bunch of drama surrounding that. Basically what ended up happening, if you're unaware, is the Dodgers offered Freddie Freeman the sun and the moon, and he took it. But basically, what ended up happening is the Braves actually sent another offer that was better, or like just as good. And Freddie Freeman's agent knew if he saw that offer, he would have taken it, and just didn't show it to him. Which is people were hating on Freddie Freeman for that, and then this found out that was terrible. I felt bad when I found out. So Freddie Freeman fired his agent, as he should. But anyway, they got Matt Olson to replace him, and Matt Olson has basically been playing just as well. These are two of the elite first basemen, but Matt Olson with a great series, helping to carry the Braves to a sweep, and they now lead. They're up 2 games on the Braves with 3 games to go. So all they got to do is win 1 game. And they got it on wraps, and they play Miami for a 3-game set. So they should. I hope they could win 1 of 3 out of that. So good series for the Braves. Way to sweep the Mets and clinch that division pretty much. Aaron Judge update. He has not gotten to 62. He's got 3 games left to do it. We'll see. I do want to give this little PSA. A lot of people. So I watch college football mostly on Saturdays. Obviously, they're like. All these people are like, we don't give 2 shits about Aaron Judge or no home run record. Why are you putting the game on and splitting the screen when he's up to bat? We don't want to see him strike out and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, shut up. Some people like me want to watch both. Why? Just stop complaining. It's 1 at bat. Like, it's not even the true home run record. Okay, you can have your own opinion. Just no one wants to hear it, dude. Like, shut up. Like all these people that are just crying and complaining because my game is a little bit smaller on the screen. Get over it. Some people want to watch. They're like, well, if I wanted to watch baseball, I'd be watching baseball. Well, some people can't find the network because there's 160 games. It's not on every network. Like, who has Yes Network here? that the Yankees have. The Yankees play on Yes Network. Who has Yes Network in Bloomington, Indiana? Not anyone that I know. So I'm glad that they did that. But these people, like, that was all I could see everywhere I looked, was just people crying and complaining about them showing Aaron Judge. Get over yourselves. Come on. Sorry about that rant. But yeah, what has happened with the wild card race between the Brewers and the Phillies? In case you're wondering, playoff spots. So since we've last talked, the AL is set. The Mariners have clinched. The Rays have clinched. The Orioles are eliminated. Now the Mariners are up 1.5 games on the Rays. So I mean, unless something crazy happens, the Mariners should be the 5 seed, and the Rays should be the 6 seed. Philly did get their act together. I think the day we were talking, I was like, oh, they just started against the Phillies and the Nationals. The Nats won 13-4. But they did get their act together in the last 2 games. They won the second game of the doubleheader 8-2, and then won 8-1 in 6 innings. I think that game was shortened because of rain. Whatever, it was 8-1. They're going to win anyway. So it looks like the Phillies have gotten their act together, because what did Milwaukee do in that stretch? Well, they lost 2 games to the Marlins. Lost 4-3 on Saturday and 4-3 on Sunday in 12 innings. That is a heartbreaker right there. So now they are 2 games back. So basically, Milwaukee has to win 2 out of 3. And Milwaukee has to win 2 out of 3, and Philly has to lose 2 out of 3. Well, Philly is they're playing at the Astros, which is probably the toughest place to play. Great team, and they're on the road, but I mean, how hard are the Astros really going to be trying in that game? We'll see. Maybe they want to knock out the Phillies, and the Brewers are at home for 3 games against the Diamondbacks. So basically, it's going to be wrapped up if the Phillies win, or if the Phillies win 2 games or the Brewers lose 2 games. If you guys don't know how magic numbers work, a lot of people don't know how this works. It was confusing for me for a while. The magic number for the Phillies is 2, which means they could get in the playoffs with either 2 wins or 2 Brewers losses, or a combination of both. So if the Phillies win and the Brewers lose, that's 2, they're in. So whenever you see their magic number is 5 or their magic number is 8, that would be the amount of wins they would need, or how many losses the team behind them would need to have. That's basically how magic numbers work, if you ever see that being floated around. The NHL preseason has started. I'm not sure how many people really care. I don't really care until the regular season starts. I'm a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I do want to talk about the Leafs are 3-1 in the preseason, but I mean, it really doesn't matter. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see who wins the NHL this year. Of course, Colorado won it this past year. Is Edmonton finally going to get over the hump with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? Are the Leafs going to win a playoff series, which they haven't done since 2004? Man, I honestly, as a Leafs fan, I'm not even going to watch the regular season, because it doesn't mean a damn thing. I mean, hopefully they make the play. They should make the playoffs. Honestly, the Leafs should be cup favorites with the teams that they have, but of course, they're the Leafs, so they can't get anything done in the playoffs. But maybe something else will happen. The Seattle released the Seattle Kraken released their new mascot. Hold on, what was its name? Hold on, it's got like blue hair. And it looks like a troll. What do they name their mascot? I'm trying to find it. Yeah, their mascot is a troll. Oh my God, what's his name? I don't even know why I'm talking about this. No one cares. Bowie. Their mascot's name is Bowie. So make sure you go follow Bowie on Instagram. Yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. Oh, actually, before we leave, my friend sent me this. The Phoenix Suns lost an exhibition game to a team called Australia called the 36ers. Yeah, you heard that right. Apparently they are the 7th ranked team in the country of Australia. And they beat the Phoenix Suns with their starters playing. That is embarrassing. The 36ers, that's who he lost to. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this podcast. My name is Quincy Bell. Hopefully Eddie will be back on Friday. And yeah, I'll see you next time.